Hello, my name is Brenda Emmanus and welcome to I Am More, the podcast where we dive into the journeys of those who dare to dream big and turn those dreams into reality. Today we have a truly inspiring guest, someone whose story embodies the power of perseverance and innovation. Back in 1994, at just 21 years old, Ajaz Ahmed made a bold decision. He dropped out of university and, with a few friends, founded AKQA. By the age of 21, he was a millionaire, and by 2012, he had sold a majority stake in his company to WPP for an outstanding £600 million. But beyond the impressive financial success, what truly stands out is Ajaz's unwavering commitment to transforming a simple idea into something remarkable. In this episode, we explore the origins of his entrepreneurial spirit, the challenges he faced, and the principles that have guided him along the way. Ajaz will share how his upbringing in a hard-working immigrant family shaped his perspective and fueled his drive to not only improve his own life, but also to impact the lives of many others. So, without further ado, let's dive into the remarkable story of Ajaz Ahmed. Ajaz, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda, for having me along, and it's a great privilege to be back at Google, so thank you to Google for hosting this. Mine's a story of deprivation to contribution in one generation. And I'm the son of my late dad was a factory worker who did night shifts, and my mother worked in a hospital laundrette. But where I was, I suppose, incredibly lucky is that my parents were incredible role models who held something like 3 or 4 jobs at a time. So it wasn't just the working in the night shifts, but also and not just working at the hospital laundrette, but doing multiple jobs at the same time and trying to provide for a family of 4 kids and 2 adults. And up until the age of 5, I lived in one room with an outside toilet, and my earliest memory actually is I've got 2 early memories. One of the early memories was when I was about 3 or 4 and using the outside loo, and it was absolutely freezing. And the other one was my mum taking the seeds out of a pomegranate and giving them. So I suppose that's the duality that I grew up in, was being cocooned and enveloped in the love and kindness of my parents, and at the same time experiencing deprivation in lots of ways. For example, I had tuberculosis when I was a kid as well, and my aunt had it, and that's how I caught it. She needed a kidney transplant, and luckily the only consequence for me was this lung is a bit smaller because my diaphragm's been pushed up. So anyway, that's a kind of there's no greater motivation for being an entrepreneur than wanting to, I suppose, improve the lives of yourself, and at the same time improve the lives for as many people as possible.
And why that particular area? Where did that passion come from? What drove you?
So I was lucky to be born in a place called Maidenhead, which shouldn't be confused with Maidstone. It's Maidenhead next to Windsor. So Maidenhead was, I used to say, the safest Tory seat in the country, but it isn't anymore. Now it's Liberal, and it's gone to them. But one of the aspects of living in Maidenhead, which is in the Thames Valley, which was lucky, was it became the Silicon Valley of the UK. So there was these wonderful, brilliant, progressive, modern American technology companies that decided they were going to establish their headquarters in the Thames Valley. And so I grew up surrounded by these extraordinary companies. And another incredibly lucky aspect of Maidenhead was our Lord Mayor is a lady. She passed away recently, just last year, called Sheila Flather, and she's a baroness, and she was in the House of Lords. But when I grew up, she was always in the newspaper. So the point was, when you see a person of colour in a position of responsibility, if you can see it, you can be it. And certainly I was lucky that there was, again, the duality of growing up in this incredibly innovative space where these amazing companies had set up, and at the same time seeing that a person of colour could be in a position of responsibility.
Yeah, I had Moira Stewart and Trevor McDonald as my inspiration for wanting to do what I did. I want to throw one of your own quotes back at you and get you to explain it, so it's sort of indicative of your journey. You said, "My life's journey is just a remarkable adventure of serendipity." Can you explain?
Yeah, well, first of all, by accident of birth, I was born in Maidenhead, which is a rich area, and because it's a rich area, it had good schools, clean streets, and good people, and that's an immensely lucky place to grow up. So that's serendipitous. And then one of the companies that set up near us was at the time the third largest software company in the world, and I wrote them from the age of 12 to the age of 15. I must have written them 11 letters, and I never got a single reply to any of the letters where asking them for a job. And the 11th or 12th letter, I got a reply from them, and I changed my approach with that letter. And instead of asking for a job, I said, "Here's what I can do." And so they replied back, and they said, "As soon as you've got a national insurance number, you can come and work for us on a work experience." And so because I was 15 at the time, they gave me the opportunity. I got the national insurance number, so I went there that Easter holiday, and the managing director of the company, a brilliant person called Paul Sloan, one of the many saints in my life, he said that we're going to have you work in every department in the company. And so you're going to start with finance, then operations, then sales, then marketing, etc., etc. And when I went to the finance department, what I discovered was that they were logging purchase orders manually rather than using their own software. So all I did was, as a 15-year-old, wrote a system that allowed them to log their purchase orders better. And they were a database company. So if you imagine, nearly everything these days is a database. So I wrote that, and then as soon as that got the attention in the company, you can imagine then I was in demand. And I was kind of moving from one thing to another, one place to another. And then I don't know if to this day, I don't know if they did this as a, "Oh, bless him, we'll give him a chance." Kind of,
whatever reason.
Yeah, or whatever, but they sent me to Scotland on a business trip, and they said, "Go to Scotland and tell us how can we reduce our warehousing costs." So I went
What age were you then?
I think I must have been 16.
Wowza.
Yeah, so I can remember my parents dropping me off at the crack of dawn at the airport, together, making sure I got there. I was all suited and booted, by the way, this is an Oswald Boateng jacket, and so I just wanted to say, so he's
not a Burton man, never.
I love Oswald.
Don't we all?
No, he's brilliant. So I went out there, wandered around the warehouse conscientiously, and being as thoughtful as I could. Went back and I said, what you need to do is you need to stop manufacturing 5 1/4-inch discs. And for them, they either pretended it was a revelation or it was a revelation, because they immediately stopped and they saved costs. So there was one chance encounter after another, and then I was very lucky that when I was working at the world's third largest software company, the person sat next to me was a PhD in computer science, Dr. Marcus Richards. And so he was my neighbour, and I would get to learn from him. So I just grew up in this incredible environment, in this incredible American software company where the world is your oyster, anything is possible. And it was so progressive. And, Silicon Valley really led the revolution in terms of having women in senior roles and people of colour in senior roles. So it was really a brilliant environment to be in.
But what's staying in my mind as you talk is, I mean, it was all well and good, all these opportunities came for you, but you were clearly a pretty special kid. And then I'm thinking, my God, I wish my daughter didn't do art and did computer science instead. I knew I made the wrong choice. But there was clearly something special about you that they saw.
I don't know. So I feel.
I think you partake of the humble pie, sir.
I don't know if I feel. We stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm just incredibly lucky that all the people in my life. So most of the adults in my life growing up were saints in my life. There was, and then there was experiences where, for example, when I knew I wanted to start a company, I didn't have a great deal of capital to get the company started. So I said to an agency that had worked for the world's third largest software company, I said to them, can I have office space in your studio office and you can have the company? I just want to do and he said to me, he goes, no, sorry, you can't have office space and you're going to fail anyway, but just bear in mind you'll be getting more experience than your friends at university. And I thought, that's bizarre, but it ended up really lucky because if I'd given him the company, it would have been a different story.
Completely different
exactly.
story. So let's start a bit.
Him who sat here instead of me.
He wouldn't have been as nice, and he wouldn't have been in an Oswald Botan suit. I am sure of that.
Exactly.
Let's talk about building the company, because I can only assume that in navigating the entrepreneurial road there are choppy waters. So what were the major obstacles that you came across, and how did you deal with those?
Well, the first one was raising capital. So this is before crowdfunding sites and before the UK has embraced investment into technology and innovation. So it's very difficult to raise any money. And what made it even more difficult was the fact that the bank wouldn't give me an overdraft. So they said, sorry, we're not going to give you an overdraft. So that meant that whatever business we went into had to be cash flow positive from day one. And so that is the professional services business, because certainly when we started, when you started work, we were able to have clients pay us as soon as we started work. So that meant we could invest in it. So that was one of the reasons why we became an agency. But the way I look at it is, from your greatest defeats can emerge your most profound triumphs. And when you think about the word triumph, it's just try with an oomph. And
that's clever.
Yeah, that's.
My dad used to say every disappointment is a blessing.
It isn't at the time.
Yes,
it feels
really.
It feel like you've been winded at the time, but when you reflect on it, a month later, a year later, you grow from it, and that if you look at a disappointment as a blessing, then that's a blessing. Mm. And it's in itself, the fact that you can look at that disappointment as a blessing.
So as a seasoned entrepreneur now, what's your approach to difficult times, be it staff, be it economics, whatever? What's your approach to challenges now? That
someone else has experienced this challenge and they've somehow overcome it, and therefore it can be overcome. So again, another great saint in my life is an anthropologist called Wade Davis. And Wade is this incredibly eloquent speaker and a phenomenal writer. And he has these superb quotes. And one of the quotes is, despair is an insult to the imagination. Pessimism is an indulgence. And orthodoxy is the enemy of innovation. And I think when you hear that, you think it's very hopeful. And my mum has another saying, which is harkat barakat, which is where she says that what that means is there's blessings in every good action. So if you've got good intentions and you act, then hopefully great things will happen.
That brings me nicely into your company and the principles which apply to your company, which is a top-down, bottom-up approach. Can you share them? Because I'm sure it's sort of your unique modus operandi, but part of the success of your company and why people so want to work with you.
Yeah, well, we're incredibly lucky that we get about between 12,000 and 20,000 job applications a quarter from people who want to join our company. And that we consider to be a massive, massive privilege. And it's a huge credit to all of our team. And I think one of the reasons for that is the representation at the top of the company. So we have a 5-person leadership team. And the 5-person leadership team comprises of 3 women, 2 people of colour, and 2 men. And we also have a set of principles called the AKQA framework, where the AKQA framework is used as the methodology or the operating system for the entire company. So across 4 different pillars, whether it's employee, client, reputation, and commercial, we have a set of KPIs which we track and we report on every single quarter. And I send a report myself to every single employee which shows how we're tracking against those key metrics, so people can see where we need to make improvements. So one of the areas we knew we needed to make improvements was a few years ago we saw that our gender pay gap wasn't where it should be. So we had the intention and the focus to fix that, and now we have the parity that we need, which shows that where there's a will, there's a way, that any obstacle like that, which was, I felt was a moment of shame. To me, it's unacceptable that we had that. Unfortunately, our brilliant leaders in our London studio, Ron Peterson and John Bernard, also felt that way, and they ensured that we had parity.
I want to share this with you because it was 2 years ago, I think you achieved a 0% gender pay gap and a 50-50 gender representation at every level. That to me sounds like nirvana. And there are so many organisations that aspire to kind of this gender balance. You make it look so easy, is it?
If you've got the intention and the actions, then it will happen. But I think what happens a lot is companies will do something for the optics, but they don't really change how it should be on the inside. And the optics aren't enough. There needs to be meaningful change on the inside. So Lord Hastings has this brilliant quote, which I heard at a Virgin Unite event, which is, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, and belonging is being able to choose a song from the playlist that everyone else can dance to. And what you find is that there's been tremendous progress in diversity, tremendous. And perhaps there's been good progress in inclusion, but the belonging is not something that has improved considerably. And a lot of that is because some decisions are made with the optics rather than meaningful change.
Do you think you've been able to make that change happen because you're more conscious of it, or because you're on a position of power where you can do it?
Well, I think it's the right thing. So I couldn't, we put together a presentation, our leadership team put together a presentation recently, and it showed the representation across our leadership team. And for me, it's the single biggest pride in the entire presentation, is seeing the extraordinary representation across so much of our, and I think that's why, as an organisation, we've won 81 Agency of the Year awards, which no company has done in history, and that's a reflection of our far amazing people.
I think I was being nice about it, saying the fact is there aren't many leaders from minority. The balance still isn't there, but when there is somebody there that can make a difference, it makes a difference. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And again, I was so lucky that the American investors that helped AKQA to grow and the American companies that we partnered with embraced that philosophy.
Very kindly and nicely goes to my next question, because you have worked globally. Have you noticed a difference in culture in terms of the approach to inclusion? And what can we all learn from it?
Yeah, I felt, so when you go to the USA, you're British, but in the UK, people will say, where are you from? And so that's just one slight difference, is that, and who knows why it is, but that's, whereas in America it feels like, because it's a country built by immigration, that it feels in many ways incredibly welcoming of everybody. And certainly my experience of America is it's an absolutely extraordinary organisation. Like, if you have a look at Silicon Valley CEOs, for example, and you see that some of the world's most valuable companies are run by leaders of Indian descent, or indeed Taiwanese descent. In the case of Jensen Huang, who runs NVIDIA, you see there's incredible representation in the USA for minoritized ethnic groups. And in the UK, we don't have that representation yet, but we're certainly making progress towards it, and I'm genuinely optimistic that we'll continue to make progress. You've
mentioned the array of awards that you've won. You've also been recognised with an MBE for your services. But what for you? I mean, how do you personally measure success? What does it mean to you? What does success mean to you, and how would you define it personally?
So just coming back to the awards, just every time we get recognised with an award, it's a celebration of the entire company. With everything we do, we can't do it on our own. Every project is a collaboration with our studios and our clients all over the world. So that's one aspect, is that every award is recognition of that collaboration. And then the other aspect of every award is it's a gift, and it's a gift that should act as fuel to help you to improve the quality of all lives. And I think when I think about success, to me, there's only one metric that matters for any company. It's improvement of quality of life. So at the moment, rightly so, shareholder value is an incredibly important metric, because if a company isn't growing, then it's going backwards, and it's important to kind of keep looking forward and keep growing. But in addition to shareholder value, I believe there should be another metric that all companies should report on, which is how have they improved the quality of all lives, including, all the species and animals that we share this beautiful planet with.
You seem to have a very collaborative approach to everything that you do, but you're still a leader. Does it ever get lonely? Is leadership sometimes lonely and challenged in that respect?
Again, part of the serendipity is there's never been a single time in my life I felt lonely. So I feel really blessed about that. I've never felt lonely, and a lot of that's because we've got a brilliant team, brilliant clients, brilliant investors that we've had, like General Atlantic, Francisco Partners, who's assisted coming to Sequoia, Accenture Technology Ventures, just these incredible investors that really helped us to grow. And then amazing client partnerships. Nike has been an AKQA client for 25 years. So we're very lucky that we have that spirit of partnership.
Now, you're deeply involved in media and technology. How do you see the role of digital innovation evolving over the next decade?
So obviously the word of the moment is AI.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and the way we look at AI is it's a force multiplier that's compounding. So we see it as an amazing productivity tool that takes away the labour-intensive manual work, and it allows humans to do the higher level thinking. And just as a quick question, if we've got time, does anyone know when the camera was invented? What year the camera was invented? Anyone want to guess? Someone, I heard someone.
Who's bold enough to put their hands? Someone had their hand up.
Without Googling it. Someone, I think you said it. Did you? 1825. Oh, 1839. And then, do you know when Monet started painting?
I should know this, but I don't.
1880. So Monet's, who led the Impressionist movement, those beautiful paintings, that was in response to the camera. So when we look at AI, we don't feel remotely threatened by it. We see it as a phenomenal tool for the canvas that elevates human levels of creativity to a different place. And one of the problems about predicting the future is that people always use the technology of the present. So what happens is you see these sci-fi films that have still got physical buttons. And of course, we've got touchscreens because at the time they couldn't imagine that you could have screens that you could touch. And so in the same way today, we're constrained by a vision of the landscape that we have right now, instead of the incredible innovations that are going to compound as a result of extraordinary breakthroughs that machine learning and Gen AI are going to help deliver.
Now, you must see and be approached by a whole generation of young people like yourself who have 15 amazing ideas and not quite sure how to navigate the business world. What advice would you give them? It's like saying to you, I guess another way of saying, what advice would you give to your younger self or other underrepresented groups who want to be sitting where you are right now and doing what you've done?
Where there's a will, there's a way. Don't give up, keep trying, and great things will happen. I genuinely believe it. Though, if you aim to do good and you have good intentions, that will deliver great results. I think so much is about intentionality and what your intention is. And I think one of the aspects that's always been important to me and everyone in our company, and certainly our clients as well, is the aspect of service, being of service and being of use to the community. And I think if any entrepreneur thinks to themselves as their role is to problem solve, so take away the pain points from people's lives, then that delivers great breakthroughs, because and that comes from this idea of being service oriented.
I mean, your company's exemplary in so many ways in terms of D&I. What would you say then to organisations who are still struggling, who try and would have goodwill or otherwise? How would you get them to recognise the fact that there is value in difference and they're not losing out if they give up a seat at the top table? Yeah,
I'll just share a quick story on that. So there was a Teams call a few years ago where someone was saying, well, it's very difficult to find people of colour for these roles. And that, I was kind of, yeah. So
you bit your tongue.
Yeah, while that was going on, I just Googled and I said, well, here's 15 examples that immediately come to mind. Unfortunately, they didn't hire any of the 15, but fortunately, because it was so, and this is for trustee roles on a board, and fortunately, they did increase the representation on the board. But sometimes you hear these tropes like the word, oh, it's difficult, or those kind of, and it's like if you have a look at the women's movement over the last those decades and the hard-won rights that women had to fight for decades and decades. And it's exactly the same when it comes to diversity, inclusion, representation, that it's an ongoing challenge that everyone has to be courageous to help us to kind of overcome. And the great thing is there's a new generation that have grown up with diversity woven into their fabric of their being. And that really helps.
We were talking earlier, and it had me thinking about my mother, who passed away recently. So I've been thinking of anecdotes about her quite a bit. And I had flashbacks of her in the kitchen, juggling, doing meals for us, taking care of business, doing budgets. And then I'd have parties, and she'd stay up with my aunties cooking all night for people who stayed, And she'd go to the church, and then she'd be central to the church community. That ability to collaborate, to juggle, to ideas, to make budget work, there are leadership qualities. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to pass that on to my kids, and that, but they're innate in us, all of these qualities. I wondered whether there's anything from your own parents or from your own community that you feel is innate in you that has led to your personal success.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to leadership,
you mentioned your parents earlier.
There are thousands and thousands of books, podcasts, lectures, tweets. Do you call them tweets anymore? Do you know?
I don't even do it.
Yeah, exactly. So all of those messages that exist about leadership, but I think leadership's about one thing, which is being a decent human being. And that's fundamentally all that matters.
And did you get that from your parents?
So again, similar work ethic. And when I look back, and I find I don't know how they did it. It's just truly miraculous that how was it possible that they created this environment where an individual like me was able to go from deprivation to contribution in one generation, which shows how much potential there is for tens of thousands of people in the UK and around the world if they're given the opportunity or the platform to contribute. And
that's all it boils down to, really, is having the opportunity. We do have to wrap up, so I'm going to ask you an off-the-gender question to share something with us that isn't in your bio or in your CV that is interesting about you. I know something, but I'm hoping that you'll share it.
So one story I'll share with you is from someone who, again, another saint in my life, who I love very, very, very much. And it's Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I was very lucky that thanks to Richard Branson and Jean Olwang and Peter Gabriel that I was invited to be part of the team that launched the Elders. So I'd get the chance to work with, or certainly be in the same room as Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Kofi Annan and Mary Robinson and Jimmy Carter and so many incredible luminaries and brilliant people. And I was standing in South Africa talking to the Archbishop, and I think I just must have been talking too much. And he said to me, "Listening is a healing." So that was what made me a more focused listener, which obviously means two things. One is listening to someone else is a healing for them, and it allows you to spend more time listening than talking.
Listening to you has been an absolute pleasure. I thought you were going to share the fact that you'd been in the film with Denzel Washington.
Oh,
that's another story.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Ajaz Ahmed, thank you very, very much. You're truly inspirational.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.